Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop, and there are 6 levels of joinery. So the question is, what level are you on? Number 1, and the most common, is the butt joint. Nothing holds these together but the glue or the screw or the hardware you may put into it. Nothing is restraining these in any direction of movement except for the one where you push them together. All you have to do is be able to cut a square end on a board and you can make a butt joint. They're not that hard, and anyone with a Craig jig can do butt joints. It's at this point that pocket holes really get a bad rap, because a lot of people say, ooh, butt joints, they're really simple. Pocket joints, you really don't have to do much for that, therefore they're crummy, right? If done wrong, they can be very trashy. But if done right, they can actually be very valuable. Historically speaking, pocket holes were one of the most valuable joints. And yes, they did pocket holes for as long as they've had screws. If you've got a stretcher running around between legs on a table and you want to attach the tabletop down, a pocket hole is one of the best ways to possibly do it. It allows for expansion and contraction of the wood. It gives you a nice strong hold. It is reversible, so you can just pull the screw out and take the top off and fix the table. It's a really good joint. But it's also a really easy joint, and because of that, it's the first level of joinery. If you can cut a board straight and you own a blue jig, hey, you can do joinery. But what if I want the boards to hold themselves together without hardware? In that case, now we have gotten to dovetails. Yeah, dovetails are only the second level of joinery. We think of hand-cut dovetails as the pinnacle of modern joinery, the apex that someday we might achieve. But in a historical sense, most of the time they tried to hide the dovetails. They put veneer over them and half-blind and full-blind, and we'll be getting to those in a minute. But dovetails were kind of ugly. It was such a simple joint. Why do you want anyone to see that? And some of you will say, wait, what about finger joints? Finger joints are easier than dovetails, right? Nope. Dovetails are just messed up finger joints. When you cut them by hand, it's the exact same process between dovetails and finger joints. You do the exact same thing, except for on the dovetail, on one of the cuts you just go on that way, whereas with the finger joint you have to go vertical. And in that case, actually, when you hand cut them, finger joints are harder because you need everything to be square and true. Dovetails, whichever side you cut first, you can do it whatever way you want. You just have to make the other side match it. And as much as we really like to romanticize dovetails and show them off as this amazing thing, they're honestly only the second level of woodworking. On to the third level, half-blind dovetails. With a finger joint or traditional through dovetails, you're actually cutting all the way through the board. And so you've got a two-dimensional drawing that you're working to. Even on dovetails, you're still working with that two-dimensional drawing. Whereas as soon as you get into half-blind dovetails, now you have a three-dimensional pocket you have to work with. You have to get back into that corner and get a nice square fit so that this can fit down in there. And they're each different lengths and different sizes. Making a half-blind joint is a good bit more difficult than making a regular one, but it's still only the third level. Full blind dovetails. They're in there, but you can't see them. But with a little bit of wiggling, we can actually get them to come apart. And look at that, inside we have dovetails. They're like half-blind, but they're with a miter on there. And so they have all the difficulty of a three-dimensional joint, but then you're putting in extra effort to make everything disappear. And this is the point where most Japanese woodworking is, the fourth level of woodworking. Full blind dovetails are the mastery of the craft. At this point, you can do it all. You have done it all, and you are capable of making every joint you want to make. You have the ability to make it look like there is no joint at all, because you can do three-dimensional compound joints that come together in all different directions. And this is what people think about when they think about Japanese joinery. They want something that's tight and hidden and intricate and really interesting, and something you have to draw out a whole blueprint to really understand until you see it in person. But all that being said, this is the fourth level, and we have 2 more to go. The fifth level is embellishment. Those don't look like they should work, but you come out from the end and, oh look, it's just a dovetail. But this is a Bermuda dovetail. This is the point where you're actually moving away from the joint itself. The furniture is functional and pretty, but we want to make it even better. We want to embellish it, and we're going to put in carving, marquetry, veneer work, beading. We want to put in all these little elements that make it pop out so it doesn't look like wood. It actually has a texture and a surface, and we're adding to it. It's functional, but we want to make it pretty. Most woodworkers find themselves going into a phase where everything gets carved, everything gets some marquetry, everything gets this extra detail into it, because we find things that are really interesting. We've done all the work to make things functional. They will withstand, they will last for centuries. They are good woodworking, fine woodworking even, but I want more. And this is where some people, like myself, tend to go a little bit overboard. Everything gets embellishment. Everything gets something special because everything is handmade and different and cool. But then at some point, you start to get bored with it. I've done that before. I've done all the carving I want to do. I've done all the marquetry I want to do. I've experimented and played with those different forms of embellishment, and I like them, and I do incorporate them in what I do. But I get a little bit more picky about how I incorporate them. I get a little bit more tasteful in how I do it. And it's not all just gaudy work for the sake of gaudy work, unless you're French Federalist, in that case it's just gaudy work for the sake of gaudy work. And it's around that time that people start going into the sixth and final level of woodworking. This is the point where the individual finds their style. They can do interesting, fun things that are different. This is just a simple joint. I'm not covering it up and hiding it, but the simple joint has style. I can do dovetails, but I want to do houndstooth dovetails. Just a little bit extra that makes things shine. I want to do machine style joints, but do them by hand. I want to embellish things, but I only want to embellish them to the trained eye. I don't want the average Joe to look at that and go, wow. I want someone who's done woodworking to look at it and go, huh, that's interesting. I'm not covering the surface and carving and all sorts of details. I'm sprinkling them in key points to make it a statement. Generally, at this point, the joinery actually gets a little bit more simple. We're going back to the same things we did before. We're doing dovetails. We're doing them with a border or an inlay. You've done it all. You know all the skills. You can do them all. You've dabbled around and experienced with different things. But at this point, you're also learning restraint. You're not covering things because you can. You're not showing off all these little things to show them off. You're putting in the little things that make you smile. You're putting in the connections and the joints that please you and things that you've learned over the time that fit your style, and not just, ooh, wow, look at that, pretty shiny. And that's really the sixth level. You're actually getting into the point where you can hold yourself back and not go hog wild. And the really interesting thing about all of this is once you start doing a few basic joints, you can do everything else. This here is called a Gottschall block, and this has a few simple joints. An edge dado, an end groove, a rabbet, a round out, a stopped dado, a through mortise. And once you can do these few cuts, once you can master the chisel work and the saw required to accomplish these, every one of these joints is possible. The only difference between doing these joints for the first time and progressing through the levels is messing up. Because the only way you make it through and you start learning new skills is to learn the skill. And with hand tools, the only way you can learn that skill is by doing it. And so it's one of those fun things where once you get to do this, you're on your way. You have learned everything you need to know. Now you just need to learn how to do it better. And do the same thing over and over and over again in slightly different orientations and slightly different matters until someday you get to this and you go, I really like the way that came out. Until one day you suddenly realize, wait a second, I've got my own style. I'm not actually copying anyone on this. I've gotten all of these ideas from people's over the year, but now I'm doing something that's me, something that I enjoy, something that is my taste. I would say I'm still at level 5. I like putting a lot of carving on things. And I haven't quite gotten to the point where I've found my style, what I really like to do, where I've found where I really want to go. I still like experimenting. And one of these days I'm going to find something that I really want to dive deeper into and know a lot more about that specific thing. But for right now, I like putting carving on everything I touch. And so I think I'm still at level 5. And for most people, it's 20, 30, 40 years until they start getting into level 6. Because, yeah, it takes a while to understand where you want to go. With enough experimentation and playing around and eventually trying things out, I'll find out where I want to be and start cutting back on all of the gaudy extraness. But until that point, leave a comment down below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you. No, honestly, without you guys, I would still be in my shop, not really pushing myself as much as I have to with you. So thank you for encouragement and help along the way. And particularly thank you to all the patrons, everyone who's scrolling over here on the side. Thank you. You guys are the ones that make this happen. And I'm trying to do some special things in there. We do a couple giveaways and extra things like that. So if you want to find out more about Patreon, think about joining down below. I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Some people progress through the levels very slowly. They take the stairs. Personally, I chose to take the elevator. Unfortunately, a kid jumped onto the elevator right as I got there and went tick, 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 and all of them lit up, and now I'm slowly making my way up. You can tell I've done a lot of full blind joints. I mean, it's only a blind person could make a joint like that.